So, 2025 has just ended. And I'm pretty sure that all of you have watched all these YouTubers and Instagram stars telling us how much money they made last year. And I'm pretty sure you're thinking, when will I make that sort of money? When will I become rich and powerful? Let me tell you that if you can avoid these 5 money mistakes in your 20s, you too can set yourself up for financial success very soon. Welcome to Sorted with Sumit, where we sort out your life one video at a time. The first money mistake that most people make in their 20s is not focusing on increasing their income. When you are in your 20s, a lot of these content creators, these money gurus will tell you focus on this investment, go and buy Bitcoin, go and buy crypto, go and invest into real estate, and all sorts of advice. But nobody focuses on the most important thing when it comes to your finances. That is your income. If you do not have a high income, you cannot invest anywhere. You'll be focused on just survival. And the part where it comes to thriving will never really come. I'm pretty sure that most of you are actually in their piece. You might have just completed college or you might have just started your first job. When you get that 30,000, 40,000 rupees salary at the starting stages, it is very, very easy to start optimizing your life in terms of budgeting, in terms of focusing on how to save 500 rupees here, how to save 100 rupees there. And I understand it's all about survival. But the crucial thing that you need to know in your 20s is that your income will decide your future. When you're in your 20s, you're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to try out different things with the sole purpose being that you increase your income in some way or the other. For instance, I was working in India as a tech consultant for an IT services company. But then I realized that the pay gap between somebody on the client side in a location abroad and somebody working from India is huge. So I decided that maybe a quick way for me to increase my income would be to just go abroad and join the client side. And that is exactly what I did. I can tell you from my experience that I used to be an optimizer, right? I used to invest in lots of stocks and mutual funds, but none of it, none of it could give me the financial freedom that I have today, the ability to spend money that I have today, if it wasn't for my income. So I want you all to understand that your income is your most important thing in your 20s. I'm pretty sure everyone has told you that you should always live below your means. And that is correct. But you get to decide what your means is. You get to decide what is that threshold of income that you will set up for yourself. Without a high income, it is impossible to invest the surplus. It is impossible to actually save up money for an emergency fund, spend your money on leisure or different gadgets or something else that you are interested in if you do not have a high income. So focus on increasing your income by any means possible. Now, what are the reasons why most people actually are unable to increase their income? They get stuck in their comfortable jobs. That is the first and foremost reason. It is very, very easy to become comfortable when you're young, right? You have your friends, you're going out, you're partying, everything is so nice. It feels perfect. But realize this, eventually everybody is going to face all the financial needs and wants that people in their 30s and 40s will always face, right? And when that happens, you're not going to get that support system. You take anyone who is successful in their 30s and 40s as an example. No one became rich just from their investments. Surely some of them have grown their money using investments of different sorts, but what was it that they were able to invest? It was their surplus income. So you see, without a high income, it is actually impossible to grow your money, even in the best instrument possible. Okay. So I hope that you have avoided making the financial mistake of not focusing on increasing your income. And you're actually focused and you've actually received an offer for a great job, right? Much higher salary. This brings us to the second mistake that most people make when it comes to their money in their 20s. And that is not budgeting and saving money. So I always mention, right, that it's extremely important that you save your money so that you can build that safety net. But when you're in your 20s, it is so easy to spend money because now you have all these parties and friends. You want to go out for a trip, and that is okay. You should definitely do that. But it is important to limit yourself in the way that it actually helps you in the long run. So think about it. Let's say you're making 1 lakh rupees a month, right? technically you can spend 1 lakh rupees a month and it should be fine, right? But it doesn't work like that. You have to find out what your monthly fixed expenses are. This is very important because fixed expenses like rent, food, transportation, internet bill, or maybe some subscription, they are unavoidable. You cannot avoid them. But the quicker you can figure out, okay, I'm in my 20s, I'm 23, 24. This is my fixed budget for the month. You know exactly how much surplus cash you have. Now, you can always dedicate a certain portion of that surplus cash in terms of your leisure activities, in terms of traveling, in terms of spending it on movies and maybe parties. You can do that. But that will give you a clear idea as to what your income is, where the money is going, and how much is actually left. This good habit of creating a budget in your 20s is going to give you so many benefits in the long run. You'll never be afraid of your finances. I was recently talking to a friend who told me that she's actually scared of looking at her bank account. She doesn't go and open her bank account and check the balance because she might see some expense that was totally unaccounted for that she did not realize she made, and now the balance is not as much as she would have hoped that it was, right? And I understand that feeling, but I am an optimizer. I like to budget. So the first thing I did after starting to make my money is to realize, okay, what my fixed expenses are and what am I spending? When I was working in India, I worked in India for 9 months. I was staying in my own house and it was completely work from home. So practically I had no expenses. I could actually save that money. And I'll tell you why that helped. I saved all that money. And eventually when an opportunity came for me to move to Singapore with a new job, that cash that I had saved up was very helpful because I had to book my flight tickets. I had to book a hotel where I stayed at for like 2 weeks. I had to pay the deposit my apartment, and down payments in Singapore is very very high, right? It's not like India. So I'm very thankful that I was able to budget and I was able to save that money, which eventually allowed me to take the risk of moving to a different country. I was able to pay for it completely by myself. I did not have to ask my parents for money, and I'm very happy that I did that. So budgeting is a crucial skill that if you can master in your 20s, it's actually going to help you throughout your life. Now that you've learned how to budget and save money, this brings us to the third money mistake that I see a lot of young people make and that destroys their life almost forever. And that is getting trapped in EMIs. So after learning how to budget, you realize that, okay, my fixed expenses are such, my variable expenses are such. And then you see, okay, I'm actually getting surplus of 30,000 rupees a month. I'm actually getting a surplus of 50,000 rupees a month. And you might think that, okay, if my friend is having that iPhone, or maybe some friend has actually bought a house and started off with the loan, I can also do that. I'm also successful. I want to make my parents proud. And so you end up taking such huge loans. You might think that you're young, now is the time, things become more expensive in the future. And everybody will tell you this. Okay, please buy a house, please buy a car. Right? If you don't do this, then you are not considered successful. But let me tell you that it is a huge trap. Okay, especially when it comes to making big purchases in your 20s, like a house. A house is immovable, okay? And once you start paying the EMI, it's not a subscription like Netflix or Spotify that you can just stop. You'll have to continue making it for 10, 20, 30 years. So imagine yourself, maybe you're in a city like Calcutta or Mumbai or Bangalore, wherever, right? It's even harder to buy a property in Mumbai because how expensive it is. But just take it as an example. You choose to buy an apartment. Now, imagine if an opportunity comes up in Singapore, or if some opportunity comes up in the US or the UK or Dubai or somewhere else, somewhere totally unrelated to your main place of stay where you've actually bought the house. Will you be able to take that risk by moving to a different place and paying that EMI? What if that job might be very lucrative, but does not work out? Something happens and you'll have to come back. And now you're out of a job, you have an EMI on the hand. It's going to be extremely stressful. Before taking any decision, you're always going to wonder if I can take that risk. And if you're unable to have that flexibility in your 20s, how is it that you're actually going to build wealth in the long term? You have upskilled yourself, you have learned how to budget and save money, and now you are setting yourself up for disaster by taking huge EMIs, right? I always go by this rule that if you cannot buy something for cash twice, then you cannot afford it. And especially decisions like buying a house, buying a car, such large purchases can easily be made when you're in your 30s, mid 30s, 40s with just cash. You don't even have to take a loan to buy a house or buy a car. And now I understand that when you're in your 20s, it's very confusing and it's almost surprising to hear this. But if you can actually invest the money for like 10, 15 years that you are generating, the surplus that you're generating, you'll realize that that compounding effect has taken into play. And now you have this huge corpus with which you can do anything that you want. You can buy the house in the most prime locality of the city. You can buy the best car that you want, and you still have the money left. And especially something like a house. Most people, when they buy it in their 20s, their lifestyle changes. They continue to do well in their lives. And soon enough, when they're in their 50s, they realize that I have outgrown the first house that I bought. So I spent so many years paying the EMI, but now my lifestyle has increased. I can afford to move to a different place. I'm not happy in the locality where I bought the house and I want to move. But you have wasted so many years of your life paying EMI for that house. What ends up happening is that you are working 9 to 5, you're working super hard, you're making all that money, but then you end up taking up that huge home loan and that huge EMI, and you end up working for the bank instead because every time you're paying that EMI, the bank is making the money. So you have to ask yourself, am I willing to actually work all throughout my 20s and pay all that EMI just to make HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank more rich? Is that what you want to do? So you have to realize that, yeah, having a house is crucial. Having a house is important. But I will buy a house when I know for a fact that I am settled in one particular city. I have my family here. I have everything ready. I have everything settled. And I'm okay, perfectly okay with living here for the rest of my life. In your 20s, you don't know what is going to happen in your 30s and 40s. You don't know where your life is going to go. So if you want that flexibility, then please avoid taking huge EMIs and huge loans to impress people who are not going to pay it. One of my most favorite movies is Fight Club. And in Fight Club, the primary character, the protagonist, says that the things you own end up owning you. So you have to ask yourself this question: am I willing to work for like 3, 4 months of my life just to buy that iPhone? Or am I willing to work for like 6 months just to buy that fancy bike? Right? You have to look at your money in terms of your time. So just focus on increasing your income, saving, and investing your surplus money. And because I spoke so much about investing your money, that brings us to the fourth mistake that most young people make. They do not learn about money. They do not learn about investing. I have realized that our school system has never really taught us about money, what money really is, how to make money, how to pay taxes. So these crucial information was never given to us in school. So what ends up happening is that most people do not understand how investing works. Some of my friends who are actually in the financial services industry, maybe they're not exactly a financial engineer or sorts, but they are in that industry. A lot of them don't know basic personal finance topics. And that made me realize that because it's never taught in school, and most people are not given that exposure, that conversation about investments and money just does not happen as frequently as it should in India. What ends up happening is that people make wrong decisions. Okay. Maybe their local bank, somebody from the bank will tell you, sir, please invest in this ULIP. Ma'am, please buy this insurance product. Okay. This endowment policy. And so much of mis-selling has happened because people never took that time to understand what money is, how is it made, and how is it to be invested. Okay. A lot of people think of the stock market like it's a gambling, it's a casino. A lot of people have that idea. They confuse gambling with investing. And I don't blame them. It's mainly because they have no idea what it is. They don't understand, okay, when you buy a share of a company, you're actually getting a part ownership of the company. And why is it valuable? Because that company is actually generating cash flow. Okay. That company is actually making money. And you, as the part owner, should be given some benefit. And somebody else who is not an owner is willing to give you a higher price for your stock just for that ownership because he also wants to be part of the game. Most people don't understand what is a speculative asset. Everybody knows that price of gold will go up when the stock market goes down. Many people don't even know that, but they have this idea that gold is very valuable. But I'm pretty sure if you can ask someone, why is gold valuable? Why do people actually pay for gold? They'll tell you, oh, gold is scarce. That's why it's very expensive. But the true meaning why gold is valuable, I don't think most people understand. For most people, it is fixed deposits, recurring deposits. That is still very popular in India. I really don't understand why, but it is the case. And you can avoid making this mistake by actually taking some time to understand what investing means. What is it that you're trying to do? It's very simple and sometimes even boring. But simplicity and boring works. If you can invest your money for the long term in a index fund, for example, you can actually build a portfolio which is millions and millions of dollars big. Like for example, I invest mainly in the US markets. So I invest in only four funds, right? I invest in the S&P 500 broad market index fund, and it's an ETF, right? I am very bullish on AI and technology as a whole. So I invest in the tech sector ETF. I also invest in gold, and I invest in cryptocurrency and mainly Bitcoin. So I invest only in ETFs. I do not buy Bitcoins directly. I do not buy physical gold. I only invest in ETFs because it is convenient. I don't have to take the risk of saving that crypto somewhere or keep storing the physical gold somewhere. So it is very, very simple. But I know for a fact that if I can do this very basic investing for like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, the kind of wealth that I can build with this will be tremendous. And this idea of compounding, it's very interesting actually. I want you all to find out when people say that compounding happens, what is it that they mean? Because in the stock market or in ETFs and stuff like this, you don't have any interest. So what the hell do they mean by compounding and compound interest? So I want all of you to actually go and find out, ask yourself or ask Google or ChatGPT, what does it mean to have compounding, right? So this is something that you can try out by yourself, and just by asking all these important questions, these very, very fundamental questions, you'll realize what investing is. And if you can understand how investing works in your 20s, then you are actually upskilling yourself in one of the most important things of your life, that is managing your money. And you will be able to manage your money all throughout your 30s and 40s, and you will become, and it's almost a guarantee that you'll become super wealthy. Even after inflation, even after all the crises in the world, you will still become super, super rich. So all these YouTubers who are now telling you their income, you might experience FOMO now, but trust me, you are not that far off. All you need to do is become disciplined and learn how to invest and invest regularly. And sooner or later, you will actually become super wealthy yourself. One caveat to the investing topic is that you should never start investing without building your emergency fund first. In your 20s, you should very much focus on actually getting some of the basics of life sorted. I always tell people that your financial health is like a house. You have to build the base first, and the stronger your base is, the more risks you can take, the more products that you can invest in. So your basics include an emergency fund, life insurance, and health insurance. Trust me, all these basic things sound like very trivial, but most people are actually one health emergency away from financial ruin. I don't want you to experience that. Focus on building an emergency fund, maybe 6 months or 1 year of your expense saved somewhere, very safe, very liquid, that you can always go and in cash whenever needed. And in case you have family, for yourself as well, get that health insurance. Don't depend on that one health insurance that your company gives you. Because if tomorrow you lose your job, you're not going to have that insurance available for you to use. And you don't want to be in that situation. So, emergency fund, health insurance, and life insurance are crucial for your base. Now, once you're able to do all of this, you can then focus on starting your investment journey into SIPs and mutual funds or ETFs as you please. So, now we have spoken about four money mistakes that most people in their 20s make. But now we come to the final one. And maybe nobody looks at it like a money mistake, but it is one. And that is not investing in yourself. When I was in India, I was always focused on becoming a good student. I was focused on my studies. I was focused on my extracurriculars. But I never realized that there are other things to life apart from just studying and extracurriculars. I need to learn new skills. I need to have hobbies, and I need to focus on my physical health. So after I moved to Singapore, I actually invested some money in learning how to swim. I joined a gym and I focused on eating better. I invested my money in terms of my food. And all of these, I wish I learned when I was in my early 20s. Because in India, maybe these conversations don't happen as often, but it is actually crucial that you focus on building up all of these things in your early 20s. Because if you're not fit when you're in your 30s and 40s, none of the money will make sense to you. You know, this quote by Naval Ravikant, I really love that quote. He says that a healthy man wants 10 different things, but an unhealthy man wants only one thing. So you have to realize your health is actually the most important investment that you can make. Go and go and learn a new sport, join the gym, focus on increasing your muscle mass, because when you're in your 30s, something called a sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, starts to happen. And it has been determined by a lot of research that your muscle mass determines how long you'll live. Okay, so if you want to have a good life, a good career, a good family, right, you want to support everybody, right, how can you do that if you are not physically well yourself? So invest in eating properly, sleeping, learning a new hobby. I personally have suffered by not having a hobby. I'm trying to inculcate new hobbies that I can actually spend my time after my work. So it will make life a lot more fun, and it will give me a reason to actually de stress. And these are things that I enjoy. So I don't know if you guys can see, but there is a pull up bar that I recently bought. So even in my own house, right, if I don't feel like going to the gym, which I just have in my condo, even if I don't feel like going to the gym, I can simply just get some push ups done. I can do some pull ups. And I don't want to be one of those people who are complaining about their back pain and their lack of strength. I want to be strong. I want to have a healthy life. So yeah, inculcate hobbies, invest in yourself, practice good habits like eating properly, sleeping, and exercise is super important. So invest on that. Even if it costs a fair bit of money, that's okay, because you are setting yourself your financial health for sure, but your health is also the most important thing that you have. So if you can do all of these things, you will ensure that you are healthy throughout your life, and that is invaluable, that is absolutely priceless. So focus on that as well. So I mentioned all the 5 money mistakes that I will suggest every young person in 2026 to not make. But how do you make all this money? And I told about, increasing your income. How do you do that? Well, you can supercharge your career by moving abroad and maybe joining the client side in a product based company. And what are the advantages and how do you do that? I have actually spoken about it in this video, which you should be able to see in your screen. Just go and watch it, and maybe it will give you some idea as to how you can supercharge your career by moving abroad and making more money and avoiding the money mistakes that we spoke about in this video. Thank you.